Finally, for those who had attained the field of wisdom as their basis, at the time they were listening to the teaching, it was as if Venerable Ajaan helped to clean up the method of mindfulness and wisdom so that it became wider and deeper every time. After the teaching, the bhikkhus variously went to practice, each in his own place and way. As for resting and sleeping, Venerable Ajaan did not lay down any fixed rule or discipline, for he left it up to each one to find out what suited him best. This was because of the differences in the extent of each individual's strengths and weaknesses in regard to their physical constitution, dhatu kantha, their ability to put forward effort in developing themselves, and the strength of their resolve towards the various aspects of Dhamma. Some took time to rest during the night, while others took a short rest during the day and increased their effort during the night, lying down and sleeping little, or some nights not sleeping at all and putting a lot of effort into their practice. Venerable Ajaan therefore left it to each individual to determine what was convenient for them in resting, sleeping, and making efforts in their practice. Along the path of progress which Venerable Ajaan Mun taught, the 5 Kammaṭṭhāna and the 13 Dhutanga were considered by him as being very important. In fact, they could rightly be called the lifeline of the Dhutanga bhikkhus who were his followers. Whoever came to him for teaching was sure to be taught these Kammaṭṭhāna practices and the Dhutanga observances within a very short time. If it was during the dry season, he would probably teach them to go and stay in the forest under the shade of a tree, saying, "Those large trees over there are thick with leaves, shady and peaceful, suitable for the practice of Pāvanā. The weather is good, and the place is free from the disturbance and confusion of the world. Those hills are places where your eyes and ears will open in the joy of Dhamma. Over there are caves and overhanging cliffs, all good places to stay and develop the practice and search for peace and happiness of heart. In those wild forests you will be able to get rid of all kinds of laziness and fear. A lazy or timid person should go and live in such a place, for it will help him to develop effort and diligence, and also to overcome his fear, so that he becomes more courageous and bold, and relieves the load and pressure on his heart, which has become too heavy. Over on that hill, in that cave, or under that overhanging cliff, the air is good, it is right for Pāvanā, and the chitta can easily become concentrated and drop into a state of calm. Once the chitta has become calm, one will be able to see various strange and mysterious things that are beyond the ordinary level of perception. On that hill, in that cave, under that cliff, there are such things out there, and anyone who goes to stay there should be careful and self-controlled. They should not carelessly think that because there are no other people and things to be seen or heard, that there is nothing else there. For there are many things which are more mysterious and subtle than the ordinary chitta is able to experience. In fact, there is far more than the material things which we see about us in this world, but we have no senses which are suitably adapted to display clearly their existence to us in the way we perceive other things in the world. So even though they are there, few or many as it may be, it is as though they did not exist at all. Therefore, those who practice should be careful to behave in a proper and modest manner in every situation, and they should at least be calm and emotionally cool. If, on the other hand, they have gone beyond this stage, all those who have deva bodies in their different realms and levels of existence, and who live in that region of this world and elsewhere, will be glad and full of admiration. This world is not void of all sorts of beings, both gross and subtle. And even in the bodies of human beings and animals, there are many kinds of organisms living in dependence on them. And those who practice to attain freedom from all conditioned things, sabhava dhamma, in all 3 realms of existence, should therefore neither affirm nor deny things which they personally know and see, saying that they exist in truth, or that they do not exist and are not true. Even in ordinary material objects, there are both gross and subtle things, and we still cannot know everything about them. Sometimes a person stumbles into things which can lead to widespread destruction of property, and this characteristic is still there in the nature of a person who likes being vain and self-opinionated. For while he goes about in his clumsy, stupid, and silly ways with no mindfulness present, he can stumble into such things in the belief that there is nothing there at all. But how is it that a thing such as that whose existence he refused to believe in at that time and in that place could cause such destruction? This should be enough to prove to him what habitual tendencies of carelessness he has. That is, of course, unless he has no intention to give way or prove anything, in which case there is no way for him to know the truths which are to be found everywhere in the world and in Dhamma. On that hill, in that cave, and under that overhanging cliff, I have stayed and practiced there. They are places that capture the heart and free it from all worry and concern connected with the distractions and disturbances of the world. If you have it in your heart to seek the realm of freedom from dukkha, you should search for such places in which to stay, to practice, and to put your life and everything into the hands of Dhamma. Then it will be as though the great teacher in person were sitting in front of you in all situations. Both asleep and awake you will be happy, and the work connected with the heart will progress steadily, and not hesitatingly and desultorily as it does in places that are distracting and disturbing. The Lord Buddha and all the Sāvaka Arahants made sacrifices, and they made the sacrifice of giving their lives to Dhamma in such places. But those who see no harm in the kilesas, tanha, and the round, the varta, of samsara, are engrossed in aimlessly wandering and reserving room in the cemetery of birth and death. The way that they go about is that of people who have no destination at the end of the road, and they find no pleasure in those places where the Buddha and the Arahants were glad to stay. Here is a charnel ground, and over there a wild jungle. Go and live in such places with the hill and forest people. They are places which in all ways will give you the incentive to work to cut away at the endless process of going the round of samsara, the varta, in your heart, making it weaker at every stage of striving. Those who do such work in a place that is suitable, and with the desire to get rid of the anxiety of coming to birth and death for many more lives, are very different from the ordinary run of people in the world. But in an unsuitable place, even though they walk jangama or sit in meditation for the same amount of time, the results are likely to be very different. This is because their attentiveness, the closeness with which mindfulness and wisdom follow their minds, and the general feeling about things in their surrounding environment are all different. So the results which come from conditions that are different must also be different. One who practices the way and truly takes the Buddha as his refuge should recollect the Dhamma that he gave to us far more than the difficulties and hardships of which fear of death is the most important. Others include such things as lack of the four requisites, such as the food which is attained on the alms round, the difficulty experienced in making the effort to train and discipline the citta which is wild, uncouth, and adventurous, for this is its primordial nature, and the hardships involved in walking or sitting in meditation over a long stretch of time, which creates painful feelings that torment both the body and heart. There are also hardships which are due to the citta refusing to give way and live within the prescribed boundary which is required. The hardships of hunger and weakness due to taking little food, because of not eating for a day or two or fasting for many days accordingly as it suits each individual's characteristics, so that the work of heart can develop more easily. The hardships of living alone, and loneliness with no friends around, nor the teacher who has trained and taught one and shared knowledge and experience together. The hardship of thinking about home, relatives, and friends who used to give a sense of warmth and comfort. The hardship of being soaked wet by rain and having to put up with the suffering of having no shelter against the sun and rain. The hardship of feeling cold and numb, as well as aches and pains which have come from various causes. The hardship of getting a fever with headache, heat, and pain in various parts of the body and having no medicine or means of looking after oneself. The hardship of fearing death while living alone in the forests or mountains without anyone to look after and protect one, and after one has died, nobody to take care of the corpse, which would remain for the crows, vultures, dogs, and flies to fight over and eat. All these kinds of thought are obstacles on the path toward Nibbana. One must not give way and let them trouble one's heart, for they can ruin a person and he will not be able to get through to the good. One should realize straight away that these thoughts are the substance of the world of causal uprising, samudaya. They are the key which unlocks dukkha so that it arises and overwhelms the heart until it can find no way out. One who practices must have the courage and endurance to put up with the sun, rain, hunger, and the various kinds of suffering and hardship that arise within the body and heart, as well as putting up with the various aches and pains which come to one, both externally and internally, and which are accepted by everyone as things that all are bound to have in one way or another. He who practices must train his heart to become firm and strong, to withstand the force of the storms which are always waiting for a chance to arise. They generally arise from the heart itself, where they are poised ready to break in and invade one and disable one's resolve to work with effort, so that one becomes weak and ineffectual, and one's previous strength, resolve, and readiness to put up with difficulties steadily diminishes until one can no longer progress at all. Finally, one comes to a stop, submerged and groping about in dukkha, as one used to be before one started out. Day by day, one drifts further away from the great teacher, the Sasada, and Buddhaṃ Saranam Gacchāmi become mere words which anyone can repeat. But the important thing is that the truth of the word Buddhaṃ becomes steadily more insipid and disappears from one's heart. This is what the Lord called one who has given up, defeated by kilesa maras, which means that he is unable to fight against his own low and baneful thoughts. One who is defeated by kilesa maras gives way and lets the mass of dukkha in his sankharas trample on him and destroy him in vain, without his having the ability to find a way of thinking out how to cure himself by means of mindfulness and wisdom. For he has enough mindfulness and wisdom with which he could escape and get himself out of this situation by using the skillful ways of a warrior to save himself from the abyss. Whatever enemies there may be in the sphere of the world, none of them have such a subtle and penetrating power as the enemies within the heart, the kilesas and tanha. These enemies are a very heavy burden for people who tend to be weak, lazy, and not much good at thinking and reasoning, so that whenever anything happens to them, they just wait and lose out without trying to think for themselves of a way of fighting and striving to get out of it. This is the type of character which the kilesa maras delight in, and whoever wants to be their favorite should train themselves in this way and accumulate such characteristics so as to become their most favorite servant, the kind who never emerges and lifts his face up to see the light of the meaning of Dhamma, that which can lead them to final freedom from dukkha. Under whatever conditions they are born in the future, they will then submit their hearts to the kilesas, their hearts which are worthy as an offering to the very highest. But the kilesas are the ones that always have the power of command over Dhamma in their hearts. When one thinks about this, it is very sad to see even bhikkhus who are of the type that practice the way giving into such vile influences without using any mindfulness and wisdom to pull themselves up a bit, enough at least to breathe and live with the peace of Dhamma, as should be the case with those who practice the way, going into the hills and caves, carrying the clod and bowl to practice and develop their pāvana. But you who have come here to train and practice in this way, are you then going to give way to the kilesas and tanha and let them walk all over you and destroy you and then chant the funeral ceremony for you as they feel like it? If so, then the teacher's heart will break, and he will surely die before his pupils do. In talking about Venerable Ajaan Mun's methods of teaching, it is difficult to catch and display his characteristic ways, for they were the methods of a sage who was clever and penetrating, and who lived in this present age. So I feel sorry how, in having written his biography, Venerable Acharya Manpuri Dattathera, and also in writing this book, Paṭipadā, Venerable Acharya Mun's Path of Practice, I do not have a good enough memory nor enough ability to conform to his greatness, so I am unable to dig down and find the real essence of his words and Dhamma, which matters most in his teaching, so as to present it for you to read in a way that is fully satisfying, and is also appropriate to Venerable Ajaan, who deserved to be called one who is replete in Dhamma, which is my opinion. But if I am wrong, I apologize. In teaching the bhikkhus, Venerable Ajaan laid great stress on the Dhutanga observances, and he laid special emphasis on that of living in secluded places such as the forests, hills, caves, and overhanging cliffs. It seemed to me that he constantly stressed this group of Dhutangas almost every time that he taught us. If he did not mention these places at the beginning of his talk, he would do so in a summary at the end. This was consistent with one who practiced the way, and liked to live in the forests and hills throughout his life, and whose ordination was genuine and true. His teaching rarely, if ever, let the essence of Dhamma become separated from the Tudanga practices. As soon as he had finished leading the bhikkhus on a tour to admire the forests, the hills, the caves, and overhanging cliffs, which are delightful places, he would take them in his talk to the village on the Paṭipadā round for various Dhamma lessons. He would teach them the way the robes should be worn, and how they should behave in a proper, restrained manner, not looking here, there, and all over the place, which is the manner of someone who has no mindfulness present, but looking in a self-controlled manner, quiet, modest, and with mindfulness present in every move that they make. Meanwhile, their hearts should ponder whatever Dhamma it has been their habit to practice and develop. Paṭipadā is always considered to be a very important duty for the Tudanga bhikkhus who follow the way of Venerable Ajaan, and they should never miss it, except only when they do not eat food, in which case it is not necessary to go. He taught that when going on Paṭipadā they should make an effort to work internally without letting up, both while going out and returning to the place where they are staying, and while they are arranging their food, putting it into the bowl and eating it with the hand. Also how, before eating, they should examine reflectively, using the repetition of the Patisankha Yoniso as the basis, with whatever skill each one has in accordance with the basic level of his mindfulness and wisdom. This should be done for at least 1 minute before beginning to eat in a modest, reserved manner, while being mindful both of oneself and the bowl. The food which is in the bowl is of many kinds, and it appears in various forms, characteristics, and colors. When it is all together in the bowl, what does one feel about it? One should wait and watch for the deceitful trickery of the heart displaying itself in various ways while eating. Set your mindfulness and wisdom to wait and watch, and to check both the hunger that may be produced in an unnatural way, which is the work of tanha, fiery eyes and a monkey mind, and also the tricks of the mind, which may think how if the food is mixed together in various ways, its taste will be altered accordingly. By contemplating in this way, the mind becomes revolted, disgusted, and disinterested, and has no desire to eat, for it goes against the natural inclinations of one who does this practice to correct himself in all ways and to get rid of all impurities in his heart. The method of investigation or contemplation which each individual uses depends on where the skill of each one lies. It may be in contemplating loathsomeness, or in contemplating the elements, or any other way which reduces and gets rid of the kilesas, tanha, and self-forgetfulness. These are all correct and proper ways for each individual to practice variously as it suits his skill and ability while taking food. While eating, one should make one's task to be that of having mindfulness present in every process, by watching the interaction between the citta and the food which is taken and contacts the sensitive taste organs and body, dhatu kanta, generally while chewing and swallowing it. One must not let the citta get out of hand and become obsessed with the tastes of various kinds of food, which is self-forgetfulness. For there is one kind of hunger that is due to the physical reaction of the body getting weak and wanting something to cure it, and there is also another kind that is due to the overruling power of craving, tanha, the agitation of the heart looking for pleasure. The former is considered to be a normal state of the kantas, and even the arahant can have it, like everyone else, but one must always be cautious and watchful of the latter kind and keep it under control. For if one is unconcerned and disinterested and lets it go its own way without restraint, it will lead one to ruin, because it is the kind of desire which is under the controlling power of craving which floods everything, everywhere, and is never satisfied. One who practices the way must have constant mindfulness and wisdom close to the heart to watch over this process of taking food every time he does so that his heart will be able to get used to examining and guarding himself in various situations while standing, walking, sitting, lying down, eating, and all others, including the various activities around the monastery such as sweeping the ground. These are duties that the monks should do without letting go of their mindfulness and wisdom, which are factors of their Dhamma work. For without them in the heart, in whatever they do, they become mere performing puppets for whom their work has no meaning, for they have no awareness of themselves. After the meal, the bowl should be washed, wiped dry, and, if the sun is out, it should be put in the sun for a short while, before putting it away in its right place. After that, they turn to other things such as the walking meditation, sitting in samadhi bhavana, or other kinds of work. After eating, it is usually better to work at the walking meditation rather than sitting, because the activity gets rid of drowsiness better than other methods. But any day that one goes without food, one will be able to sit and practice meditation at any time and in any posture without much likelihood of being troubled by drowsiness. Therefore, those who are suited to this way of practice often like to fast. Sometimes they fast for a few days, sometimes for many, sometimes for 2 or 3 days, up to 19 or 20 days, or a whole month, and in some cases taking no food at all except water. Although after fasting for several days, in most cases they will take a food drink such as Ovaltine if it is available, which is enough to relieve physical weakness. They do not take it every day, but only on those days when they feel very tired and weak. In the days when Venerable Ajaan Mun was a teacher, there was no question of milk, Ovaltine, white sugar, cocoa, coffee, or anything of this sort. One could not even find any pictures of such things to gaze at when one felt hungry, although looking at them could hardly cure one's hunger. It was very different from the present day, for now there is an abundance of everything until it has become a case of opulence more than of starvation and lack. It is probably for this reason that we Thudanga Kammaṭṭhāna bhikkhus find it very difficult to follow the way of Venerable Ajaan Mun, and complain out loud that the chitta does not become concentrated and calm, and it is very troublesome. It is like this all the time and almost everywhere, but truly, how can it be expected to get calm? And here you must excuse me if I put down the truth of this matter, for in the morning they go on the alms round, and they return with a bowl filled with sweet and savory foods, and sometimes carrying an extra food container, and when they arrive at the assembly hall, the food carriers are put down in rows. But there is no way you can avoid accepting it, for it is only given out of faith by people who have the purpose of making merit by doing good acts, and who have made an effort to come from all sorts of places, both far and near, in order to share in the merit from the Thudanga Kammaṭṭhāna bhikkhus with smiles and happy expressions. However much they give, they are not afraid of having nothing left, because the power of faith leads them on to better themselves. Up to this point, it is troublesome enough, but then at midday, or in the afternoon and evening, there is ice, orange juice, soft drinks, cocoa, coffee, sugarcane, sugar, lots of everything coming up until there is no way of consuming it, and one just gives up, inundated. Such Thudanga bhikkhus are therefore very rich, but their meditation practice is not good. They are sluggish and tired, like a heavily laden ship just waiting and admiring the water without yet having left port. Therefore those who aim for the shore of Nibbana are very careful, watchful, and strict with themselves, and are not thinking only of their mouths and stomachs, nor how difficult and hard it is, for they strive and persevere and fight against the obstacles which bar the way. They are not careless with things, nor with the food, the requisites for monks, and other things which they are given, for even if there is much, they take only a little, knowing what is the right amount. It is much the same with those who give up lying down, who reduce the amount of food they take, or those who go on fast, for they are all methods of leading them to calm and happiness of heart. For those who find that fasting suits them, however long they go on fasting, their hearts become increasingly calm and clear, and their level steadily goes up and becomes more subtle. Calm is then attained much more quickly and easily than usual, and when they withdraw from it to think and research by way of wisdom, their hearts will be skillful, agile, and daring, and whatever they investigate they can penetrate throughout just as the heart wishes. As for hunger and tiredness, instead of being a trouble and torment to the body and mind, it becomes a smooth and pleasant way for them to progress each time that they reduce the amount of food they take or go on fast.